Okay, this is our next unit. It's all about irrational numbers. But before I get into what an irrational number is, we're just going to talk about numbers in general. So what I'd like you to do is print this paper out. It's just called Types of Numbers, and I'll put it in the folder below. Okay? So just if you're thinking about numbers, the numbers that you learn right when you start counting, we usually call them counting numbers. They start with 1 and then we go 2 and 3 and 4. But in the math world, they're called natural numbers. So on this paper, your first blank is natural numbers. Those are all whole numbers greater than 0. So if we were doing this in our notebook, we would make a little circle, and I'm going to call this natural numbers. You can either do this with me or just watch. But those numbers will start with 1, then 2, then 3, and then 4, and we'll just continue all the way into infinity. But natural numbers don't include any decimal numbers, no fractions, those are just your regular numbers that you usually start learning when you start counting when you're younger. Okay? The next type of numbers, and I'm going to make a bigger circle around natural numbers because this one includes natural numbers. They're just called whole numbers. So the next blank on your paper is whole numbers. These include all of our natural numbers, but we also include 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and we continue on and on. Again, no fractions, no decimals, no negative numbers. The only difference between whole numbers and natural numbers is whole numbers include 0. Okay? The next ones are going to include whole numbers and natural numbers. That's why I'm doing a bigger circle, because it includes the stuff in the middle, but they're called integer numbers. And integer numbers are all whole numbers, which include natural numbers, but also their opposites. So the third blank on your paper, the set of whole numbers and their opposites are called integer numbers, and that means just their negatives. So we still have 0, 1, 2, 3, continuing on and on, but we also have -1, -2, -3, continuing on and on. So you guys remember, we've learned integer operations, and that was when we learned adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing with negative and positive numbers. That's really all that integer means, okay? We have another big circle around that because this one's going to include integers and whole numbers and natural numbers, and these are called rational numbers. Okay, so your next blank is rational numbers. Numbers that can be expressed in the form a over b, where a and b are integers and b does not equal 0. So basically that means rational numbers can also now include fractions and decimals somewhat. So we can have all these ones that I already included. We could have 1.5, 1.5, which is obviously the same thing, 3/4, -2/5. Just as long as you can write something as a fraction, it could be negative or positive, then that would be included in our rational numbers, as well as integers and all these things in the middle, okay? So all of this is included under the huge bubble of real numbers. And no, there's not something called fake numbers. We just call them real numbers. And real numbers include all of these rational numbers, but they also include a little bubble of irrational numbers. I know I'm going over a lot of vocabulary today. Okay, so to sum up this video, all you really need to know is any number is under the big umbrella of real numbers, okay? And then under real numbers, we have rational numbers, which include all of these things, And then we have irrational numbers that would not be in here. And we haven't talked about them really yet, so you don't really know what irrational numbers are. Your last blank on this paper, the set of numbers that includes all rational and irrational numbers right here is real numbers. Okay? In my next video, I'm going to talk about what are irrational numbers. Okay? All right.